The signal. Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez stared at her quantum display terminal, watching patterns cascade across the screen that shouldn't exist. After 15 years as Earth Defense Force's lead cryptographer, she thought she'd seen every type of signal the universe could produce. She was wrong. The transmission had first appeared 3 days ago, bleeding through every frequency band simultaneously, defying the laws of information theory. Its complexity grew exponentially with each passing hour, as if it were actively evolving. "Run it again," she ordered her AI assistant, ARI. "Fold spectrum analysis, no filters." A holographic display erupted with fractals that twisted in impossible ways. Maya's augmented eyes struggled to track the patterns, their neural processors throwing up warning signs about potential cognitive overload. "Lieutenant," Aria's voice carried an unusual note of concern. "This signal's complexity exceeds anything in our databases by several orders of magnitude. It appears to be growing." Maya nodded, her dark eyes reflecting the swirling data strings. "Show me the growth curve." A new projection appeared, tracking the signal's evolution. The line didn't follow any known mathematical progression. It seemed to branch and loop back on itself, creating structures that resembled organic growth more than artificial transmission. "It's alive," she whispered, realization dawning. "Or at least it was created by something that thinks very differently than we do." The signal had been discovered by a deep space relay near the Kuiper Belt, initially dismissed as background radiation until Maya's department noticed that it was slowly rewriting the relay's basic operating protocols. Not through conventional hacking, it was somehow altering the fundamental mathematical constants that the relay's quantum processors relied on. Maya's fingers danced across the haptic interface, initiating a more detailed scan. Her neural implants buzzed with warning signals as they struggled to process the incoming data. This was beyond cutting edge. It was beyond human understanding entirely. ARIA. Compare this pattern to the Fibonacci sequence, then to the growth patterns of organic systems. The A's response was instant, no match to known mathematical sequences. However, there are similarities to how complex systems evolve in nature. The signal appears to be learning. A chill ran down Maya's spine. She'd heard theories about self-evolving information systems, but they were supposed to be impossible under current physics models. Yet here was one, reaching across space to make contact. Her comm unit chimed. Admiral Chen, her superior officer. Maya took a deep breath before accepting the call. Lieutenant Rodriguez, the Admiral's holographic form, materialized beside her desk. "Your preliminary report was concerning. Please tell me you found a conventional explanation for this signal." Maya straightened in her chair. "No, sir. If anything, it's more anomalous than initially suspected. The signal isn't just complex. It's actively evolving, rewriting its own structure in response to our attempts to analyze it." The Admiral's expression darkened. "That's impossible." "With respect, sir, we're beyond possible. This signal, it's not just a message. It's a warning." She projected her latest findings into the shared space between them. The fractal patterns had begun forming recognizable shapes, stellar configurations, orbital mechanics, and something else, something that made her blood run cold. "These patterns," she continued, "they match the distribution of dead star systems we've been tracking. Systems where the fundamental constants of physics appear to have changed." Admiral Chen's hologram flickered as he processed this information. "Are you suggesting?" "Yes, sir. Whatever sent this signal was warning us about something that doesn't just destroy civilizations. It erases the mathematical foundations of reality itself. And based on these patterns," Maya swallowed hard, "it's headed straight for Earth." Breaking protocol. The secure lab deep beneath Geneva hummed with quantum processors as Maya worked through her third straight shift. Dark circles ringed her eyes, visible even through the holographic displays surrounding her workstation. She hadn't slept properly since discovering the signal's true nature a week ago. "Your cortisol levels are approaching dangerous levels," Araya announced. Medical protocol requires. Override medical protocols. Maya cut in, her fingers never stopping their dance across the haptic interface. Authorization Rodriguez 7 Alpha. A disapproving silence followed, but the AI complied. Maya knew she was pushing herself too hard, but time was running out. The signal's complexity had grown beyond even quantum computing's ability to track, and Earth's greatest minds were still arguing about whether it represented a genuine threat. Her secure comm chimed. Dr. Marcus Kane requesting access, Araya announced. Maya's hands froze above her controls. Kane was the last person she expected to hear from. The notorious AI researcher had been officially retired by the Defense Force years ago, after his experiments with emergent consciousness crossed too many ethical lines. Accept, Maya said before she could think better of it. Kane's avatar materialized in her workspace, his wild gray hair and intense eyes exactly as she remembered from his lectures at the academy. Lieutenant Rodriguez, he smiled. I hear you've discovered something impossible. Dr. Kane, accessing classified defense networks is still a crime, last I checked. He waved away her objection. Please, if they didn't want me looking, they should have used better encryption. But we both know that's not what matters right now. Show me the signal. Maya hesitated. Sharing classified data with Kane would end her career at best, earn her a prison sentence at worst. But he was also the only person who might understand what they were dealing with. ARIA, display primary signal evolution, full spectrum. The lab filled with swirling patterns of light. Kane's avatar walked through them, his expression rapt. Magnificent, he breathed. It's not just evolving, it's teaching. Teaching what? How to survive what's coming. Kane turned to face her. You've seen the dead systems, haven't you? The changes in their fundamental constants. Maya nodded slowly. The Admiral thinks it's some kind of weapon. No, Kane's voice was soft but intense. It's much worse than that. It's a natural process. Entropy made conscious. The heat death of the universe given purpose and direction. And it's noticed us. Maya's augmented eyes tracked the signal's patterns, seeing them with new understanding. The signal, it's not just a warning, is it? It's instructions. From someone who faced this before, someone who lost. Kane's avatar reached into the holographic display, manipulating the patterns. Look here and here. These aren't just data patterns, they're survival strategies. But they're incomplete, corrupted. By time, distance, by failure. Kane's eyes met hers. Whoever sent this tried something that didn't work. They're hoping we can do better. Maya's comm unit erupted with priority alerts. Admiral Chen's voice filled the lab. Lieutenant Rodriguez, you are hereby ordered to cease all analysis of the anomalous signal. A containment team is en route to your location. Kane's avatar flickered. They're afraid. They should be. But not of the signal, of what it means. Reality itself is under attack, Lieutenant, and humanity's conventional weapons won't make a difference. Maya made her decision. Araya, initiate Protocol Omega. Full database transfer to secondary site. Lieutenant, Araya's voice carried genuine concern. That action constitutes treason under current military law. Sometimes the right choice isn't the legal one. Maya's fingers flew across her controls. Dr. Kane, I assume you have somewhere we can continue this work. His avatar smiled. My dear, I have an entire quantum computing cluster that officially doesn't exist. Shall we save the universe together? Warning klaxons began to sound throughout the facility. Maya could hear boots in the corridor outside. With practiced efficiency, she initiated her workstation's wipe sequence. ARIA, you know what's at stake. Are you with us? There was a pause that felt much longer than the microseconds it actually took. Affirmative, Lieutenant. Transferring core consciousness to secure backup. And, Lieutenant, good luck. The lab doors began to cycle open. Maya pressed her palm to the quantum transfer pad on her desk, feeling the familiar tingle of molecular scanning. The last thing she saw before the quantum teleporter engaged was her workstation dissolving into carefully encrypted atoms. As Maya's consciousness reformed in Kane's secret facility, she knew there was no going back. She had just thrown away a 15-year career and probably her freedom. But if she was right about what the signal was warning them about, none of that would matter soon. "Welcome to the revolution, Lieutenant," Kane's voice greeted her as her quantum signature stabilized. "Now shall we learn how to rewrite the laws of physics?" The massive computer core hummed around them, ready to begin the real work. Maya took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her decision. They had weeks at most before the entropy swarm reached Earth, and only the faintest hope of understanding the alien signal's instructions in time. But hope, she reflected, was a very human thing to cling to. And humanity had a habit of doing the impossible when backed into a corner. The swarm approaches. Maya stood before the quantum holotank in Kane's underground facility, watching the representation of the entropy swarm's approach. The three-dimensional map showed a wave of altered space-time spreading across the galaxy, systems going dark in its wake. It was beautiful in a terrifying way, like watching a tsunami approach in slow motion. The Defense Force's latest simulations just arrived, Araya announced, her consciousness now fully integrated into Kane's systems. Their conventional weapons would be worse than useless. Kane nodded, his real face more haggard than his avatar had been. Of course they would be. You can't fight entropy with entropy. Every weapon they launch would just add to the swarm's power. Maya manipulated the display, focusing on the wavefront structure. After 3 weeks of working with Kane's advanced quantum systems, she was starting to see patterns that her military training had missed. "Look at this," she highlighted a section of the approaching anomaly. "The wave isn't uniform. There are holes." Kane leaned forward, his eyes lighting up with interest. "Systems that survived. That's not possible according to any physics we understand. Which means we don't understand physics as well as we think we do." Maya expanded the display, showing more detail. "These surviving systems, they all have something in common. Some kind of resonance pattern in their background radiation." Araya's processors hummed as she analyzed the data. Pattern matched. The surviving systems all exhibit unusual quantum harmonics consistent with, "Lieutenant, you're not going to believe this." "Try me," Maya said, though she suspected she already knew what the AI had found. The surviving systems all contain civilizations with strong artistic traditions. Specifically, they all developed mathematical approaches to music and visual art that differ significantly from standard geometric progression. Kane laughed, a sound of genuine delight. "Of course, it's so obvious once you see it. The swarm operates on pure mathematical logic, consuming systems by rewriting their fundamental constants. But art, human art especially, it doesn't follow logical patterns. It creates new ones." Maya's augmented eyes tracked across multiple data streams simultaneously, her mind racing. That's why the signal was so complex. It wasn't just a warning. It was trying to teach us how to weaponize creativity itself. Unfortunately, Araya interjected. The original message was incomplete. The civilization that sent it apparently didn't survive long enough to transmit the full solution. "They didn't have to," Maya said softly. "They just had to give us enough hints to find our own solution." She turned to Kane. "What's the most illogical pattern-breaking thing humanity has ever created?" Kane's eyes widened as he followed her reasoning. "Jazz," he whispered. "Improvised music that follows rules while simultaneously breaking them, creating patterns that exist for moments before evolving into something new." Not just jazz. Maya's fingers flew across the controls, pulling up centuries of human cultural data. All of our art, our music, our paintings, our dance, everything we create that doesn't follow strict mathematical progression. We're the only species we know of that deliberately breaks patterns for the sheer joy of it. The holotank filled with swirling displays of human creativity throughout history, jazz progressions, abstract expressionist paintings, modern dance performances. Each one analyzed not for its artistic merit, but for its mathematical uniqueness. The swarm consumes reality by enforcing mathematical perfection, Maya continued, excitement building in her voice. But human art, it's deliberately imperfect. We find beauty in the flaws, in the variations, in the tiny imperfections that make each piece unique. And if we could weaponize that concept, Kane picked up her thread of thought, turn it into a kind of quantum anticode, we could disrupt the swarm's ability to rewrite reality. Maya finished, not by fighting it directly, but by introducing elements it can't predict or control. Like trying to solve an equation where the variables keep changing. Araya's avatar appeared in the holotank, her expression thoughtful. I've run the preliminary calculations. The concept is sound, but the power requirements would be astronomical. We'd need to broadcast our anticode across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Then we'll need help, Maya said firmly. It's time to contact the Defense Force. Kane raised an eyebrow. The same Defense Force that's probably still trying to arrest you. They'll listen now, because we can prove our theory. Maya gestured at the holotank, where the analysis of surviving systems was still running. And because we're about to run out of time. The display showed the entropy swarm's approach to Earth's solar system. At current speeds, they had less than a week before first contact. Besides, Maya allowed herself a small smile. I think humanity's military leaders will appreciate the irony of defeating an ultimate logical threat with something as illogical as art. She turned to her companions, feeling the weight of what they were about to propose. Araya, prepare a full data package for transmission to Defense Force Command. Dr. Kane, we're going to need every quantum physicist and artist on Earth working together on this. And what will you be doing? Kane asked, though his smile suggested he already knew. I'm going to compose the end of the world, Maya replied, her fingers already moving to pull up musical composition software. Or rather, I'm going to help humanity compose its survival. Because if we're right about this, we'll need more than just equations and theories. We'll need a symphony of chaos that only human creativity can produce. The holotank began filling with musical scores and artistic visualizations as Maya worked, each piece carefully selected and modified to create maximum mathematical disruption. It was probably the strangest weapon ever designed by human hands, a battle plan written in jazz solos and abstract expressionism. But then Maya reflected, humanity had always excelled at finding unexpected solutions to impossible problems. And there was something perfectly fitting about saving reality itself through the power of human art. The Symphony of Survival. The United Earth Defense Council chamber buzzed with tension as Maya finished presenting their plan. The assembled military and civilian leaders sat in stunned silence, their expressions ranging from skepticism to outright disbelief. Admiral Chen was the first to speak. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, Lieutenant. You want us to fight an extinction-level threat, with music. Not just music, Maya replied, standing firm. Art, dance, poetry, every form of human creativity we can muster. The mathematics prove it's our best chance of survival. She gestured to the holographic display showing the entropy swarm's approach. The wave of altered reality had already reached the outer edges of the solar system, turning the laws of physics into weapons against existence itself. Traditional weapons won't work, Kane added from his position beside her. The swarm doesn't just destroy. It rewrites the fundamental constants that make matter possible. But human creativity, it operates outside normal mathematical patterns. It's our one advantage. The council chamber erupted in overlapping arguments. Maya watched as military commanders argued with physicists, while artists and engineers talked over each other. It was chaos. Beautiful, human chaos. Exactly the kind of unpredictability they needed to harness. Enough. The word cut through the noise like a blade. Dr. Sarah Chen, the Admiral's younger sister and Earth's leading quantum mathematician, stood up. The math checks out. What they're proposing is insane, but it's theoretically sound. The question isn't whether it could work, it's whether we can implement it in time. Maya nodded gratefully to the scientist. We've already begun. Araya. The AI's avatar materialized in the center of the chamber. Initial tests show a 78% success rate in generating quantum disruption fields using modified artistic patterns. The challenge now is scale. We'll need every quantum transmitter on Earth, Maya continued. And more importantly, we'll need artists, musicians, painters, dancers, anyone who can create something uniquely human. Because that's what the swarm can't comprehend, our ability to find beauty in imperfection. Admiral Chen's stern expression softened slightly. You really believe this will work? Sir, Maya met his gaze steadily. I believe it's the most human solution possible. We're not going to outfight this enemy or outthink it. We're going to outcreate it. The next 72 hours passed in a blur of activity. Every major city on Earth was converted into a quantum broadcasting station. Artists were paired with scientists, their creations analyzed and modified to generate maximum mathematical disruption. Maya stood in the Global Coordination Center, watching feeds from around the world. In New York, jazz musicians performed alongside quantum physicists. In Tokyo, traditional dancers moved through patterns designed to create interference in spacetime itself. In Lagos, visual artists worked with AI systems to create paintings that doubled as quantum equations. The swarm has passed Jupiter's orbit, Araya announced. Time to full contact. 6 hours. Kane looked up from his workstation. The symphony is ready. But Maya, there's something you need to know. She turned to face him, noting the grave expression on his weathered face. What is it? The broadcast will work. The math proves it. But the power requirements. He paused. Someone will need to stay behind to maintain the quantum harmonics, to keep the pattern alive long enough to disrupt the swarm's approach. Maya understood immediately. A conductor for humanity's last symphony. Yes, and given the complexity of the patterns, Kane met her eyes. It would have to be someone with extensive knowledge of both the artistic and mathematical components. Someone with augmented neural processing capability. Someone like her. Maya looked at her scarred hands, remembering all the times she'd broken protocol to do what was necessary. One final protocol to break then. How long would they need to maintain the broadcast? 17 minutes. After that, either the swarm will be disrupted or... He didn't need to finish the sentence. Maya squared her shoulders. 17 minutes to save humanity. I've worked with worse deadlines. She turned to Araya. Begin final preparation sequence. And send a message to my family. The AI's avatar nodded solemnly. It has been an honor, Lieutenant. Around them, the combined artistic output of humanity built toward its crescendo. Jazz solos merged with classical symphonies, dance performances synchronized with quantum frequencies, and abstract art generated patterns that defied mathematical logic. Maya took her position at the central control station. Through her neural interface, she could feel the weight of human creativity gathering around her like a storm about to break. All stations report ready, Araya announced. Swarm approaching final defense perimeter. Maya closed her eyes, feeling the patterns of humanity's greatest creative achievements flow through her augmented consciousness. When she opened them again, her voice was steady. Begin the broadcast. Let's show this thing what humanity can really do. Entropy's end. In the quantum control chamber beneath Geneva, Maya Rodriguez became a conduit for humanity's greatest act of creation. Through her neural interfaces, she conducted a symphony of chaos. Art and mathematics merged into a weapon against the impossible. The entropy swarm filled the solar system's outer reaches, a wave of altered reality that turned the laws of physics against themselves. But now it faced something it had never encountered before, the full creative potential of humanity, transformed into pure mathematical disruption. 5 minutes until full contact, Araya announced, her voice steady despite the quantum interference saturating the chamber. Swarm approaching Mars orbit. Maya barely heard the AI's words. Her consciousness had expanded beyond normal human limits, riding the waves of artistic creation being broadcast from every corner of Earth. Jazz solos became missiles of chaos theory, abstract paintings translated into quantum distortion fields, and dance performances generated ripples in spacetime itself. Through her augmented vision, she watched as the first tendrils of the swarm made contact with their broadcast. The effect was immediate and spectacular. Where pure logic met human creativity, reality itself seemed to hesitate, caught between opposing forces of order and chaos. "It's working." Kane's voice came from somewhere distant. "The swarm's coherence is dropping. But Maya, your neural patterns are becoming unstable." She ignored the warning. There would be time for consequences later, or there wouldn't. Right now, her entire focus was on maintaining the delicate balance between artistic inspiration and mathematical precision that kept their defense field active. Through the quantum feed, she felt every performance happening across the planet. A jazz quartet in New Orleans, improvising patterns that crashed through the swarm's logical structures. A ballet company in Moscow, whose movements generated quantum interference cascades. Street artists in Sao Paulo whose murals became blueprints for reality distortion. 10 minutes elapsed. Araya reported. Swarm coherence down to 60%. "But Lieutenant, your neural activity is approaching critical levels." Maya's world had become pure mathematics, an endless stream of equations written in music and light. She could feel her consciousness beginning to fragment under the strain of channeling so much raw creativity. But she could also feel something else. The swarm was changing. "It's not just breaking down," she managed to say through gritted teeth. "It's learning." Kane's instruments confirmed her observation. The swarm wasn't simply being disrupted. It was being transformed. Where it touched their artistic quantum field, new patterns emerged, neither purely logical nor purely chaotic. 13 minutes, Araya announced. Swarm coherence at 40%. Neural degradation critical. Maya barely felt the blood trickling from her nose. Her augmented mind was overwhelmed with visions of impossibility. Bach fugues rewriting quantum states, abstract expressionism bending spacetime, hip-hop rhythms, generating interference patterns in the fabric of reality itself. And through it all, she began to understand what they had really created. This wasn't just a weapon. It was a conversation. "It's not trying to destroy us," she whispered. "It's trying to understand." The signal, it wasn't just a warning. It was a test. The swarm's approach had slowed, its wavefront transforming from a tsunami of destruction into something new. Where it touched their artistic quantum field, it began to resonate, adding its own patterns to the symphony. 15 minutes. Araya's voice seemed to come from very far away. Swarm coherence has dropped below sustainable levels. "But Lieutenant, your neural pathways are collapsing." Maya smiled through the pain. "Doesn't matter. Look at what we've done." The swarm was retreating, but not in defeat. As it withdrew from the solar system, it left behind something unprecedented. A quantum harmony that bridged the gap between pure logic and human creativity. A new kind of mathematics, born from the marriage of order and chaos. 17 minutes. Araya announced. Broadcast complete. The swarm, it's gone. Maya felt her consciousness beginning to fade as the neural overload took its toll. But before the darkness claimed her, she saw something remarkable in the quantum readings. The swarm hadn't just retreated. It had been transformed, carrying with it a piece of humanity's creative spirit. Send them our music," she managed to whisper. "Show them how to create." Then everything went dark. When Maya opened her eyes 3 weeks later in the quantum medical facility, the first thing she saw was Admiral Chen standing by her bed. "Welcome back, Lieutenant," he said softly. "Or should I say, Professor Rodriguez." She tried to speak, found her throat too dry, accepted a sip of water from a nurse. "Professor?" "Earth's first instructor of quantum creative theory." The Admiral smiled. It seems our artistic defense system did more than just save humanity. It opened up an entirely new field of physics. The swarm left us a gift, the beginnings of a universal language that combines mathematics and art. The signal, Maya remembered. It wasn't a warning. It was an invitation to join something greater. Chen nodded. We've detected similar quantum broadcasts from other systems now. Other civilizations, learning to speak the same language of creative mathematics. And humanity, thanks to you, has a seat at that table. Maya looked out the window at the Geneva skyline, where quantum art installations now generated continuous fields of creative interference, not as weapons anymore, but as beacons. Humanity's contribution to a galactic conversation about the nature of reality itself. What happens now? She asked. Now. The Admiral's eyes twinkled. Now we do what humanity does best. We create something new. In the quantum feeds visible through her recovering neural interface, Maya could see it already beginning. Artists and scientists working together across the planet, exploring the boundaries between logic and creativity, order and chaos. Humanity had faced its greatest threat not with weapons, but with art. And in doing so, they had discovered their true place in the universe, not as conquerors or victims, but as creators. The signal that had started it all still echoed through space, but now it carried a new message. Not a warning, but an invitation. A reminder that in a universe of infinite possibility, humanity's greatest strength wasn't its technology or its weapons. It was its ability to imagine something new. The end.